Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I think we sometimes overlook the importance of the guard that was placed at the tomb of Jesus. We read the story of Jesus' crucifixion, burial, and death, and we come to the line about how a guard was placed at the tomb, and then we rush right by to get to the big event of the resurrection. But that guard was important. You see, those chief priests, scribes, Sadducees, and Pharisees weren't stupid. They had heard Jesus say things about rising from the dead, and they were worldly enough to think that it would be an easy thing for the disciples simply to steal Jesus' body from his tomb and then start telling everyone that he had been raised from the dead. With the guard there, it meant that a ruse like that couldn't happen. Even more, the guard being there is some of the strongest evidence that something happened there at that tomb. When stories of Jesus raised started circulating, all they would have had to do was to go to the tomb, open it up, and point at Jesus' body to disprove the story. They didn't because they couldn't. Jesus' body was gone, and the guards had made sure it wasn't stolen. Ironically, the very ones trying to eliminate Jesus provide strong evidence that his resurrection really happened. This week we are taking a look back to the events of Holy Week and Easter, and while we will look at the events themselves, our real focus is on the emotions of the week. We have looked at anticipation on Palm Sunday, confusion in the disciples and others as the week progressed, and then sorrow as Jesus died. Today, we move to wonder. Imagine walking with those women toward the tomb on that early Easter morning. They didn't know it was going to be Easter. Even though Jesus had taught several times about his resurrection, no one expected it. In their experience, when someone died, they stayed dead. And when Jesus died, their hopes and dreams died with him. They had put their stock in Jesus and the things he had stood for, and now, for all intents and purposes, all that was lost. All that they had counted on and hoped for and believed was lost too. Their feelings on the way that early morning might be termed forsaken or despairing. Their hope was gone. They had feelings of love and tenderness too. That's why they were on their way to the tomb. There hadn't been time to properly prepare Jesus' body for burial on Friday, and so, even though their efforts were days late, still they were going to care for all that remained. It was intended to be a final act of devotion. Final, because in their experience, when someone died, they stayed dead. They did question in their hearts about who might roll the stone covering the entrance away for them, but even with that unanswered question, they went anyway. Then the confusion happened. When they got there, the stone was already rolled away, and the body they were expecting to find wasn't there. Luke tells us the women were perplexed. John tells us Mary was weeping. Resurrection does not begin with clarity, but with confusion, with questions, with a heart that doesn't yet know how to hope again. Then, wonder. Angels appear with the stunning news that Jesus has been raised. Why do you look for the living among the dead, they ask, perhaps with a smile. Some of the women rush back to tell the others, but Mary stays there, tears filling her eyes. Then through her tears she sees someone and supposes it is the gardener. Tell me where you have taken him, she implores. And then she hears him speak her name, Mary. And she realizes that before her stands the risen Jesus. This is the heart of resurrection wonder. God calls us by name into new life. This is grace at its most tender. Jesus doesn't wait for Mary to understand. He doesn't require her to stop crying. He simply speaks her name, and faith awakens. Wonder is not something we manufacture. It is something God gives, and wonder changes everything. Mary runs to the disciples with the simplest, most profound testimony in Scripture. I have seen the Lord. Not, I have figured it out. Not, I understand everything now. Just, I have seen him. Easter is a day full of wonder. It is a quiet, breathtaking realization that God has done something we could never have imagined, and that he has done it for us. Wonder is the soul's gasp when God does something beyond imagination. It is the moment sorrow cracks open and light pours in. We are invited into wonder. Thanks for sharing these moments with me. And remember to let this day belong to God.